Chapters 7 and 8 of Book 8 of Les Misérables, Volume 3, by Victor Hugo. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Bruce Peary. Les Misérables, Volume 3, by Victor Hugo. Translated by Isabel, Florence, HAPGOOD. Book 8. The Wicked Poor Man. Chapter 7. Strategy and Tactics. Marius, with a load upon his breast, was on the point of descending from the species of observatory which he had improvised, when a sound attracted his attention and caused him to remain at his post. The door of the attic had just burst open abruptly. The eldest girl made her appearance on the threshold. On her feet she had large, coarse men's shoes, bespattered with mud, which had splashed even to her red ankles, and she was wrapped in an old mantle which hung in tatters. Marius had not seen it on her an hour previously, but she had probably deposited it at his door in order that she might inspire the more pity, and had picked it up again on emerging. She entered, pushed the door to behind her, paused to take breath, for she was completely breathless, then exclaimed with an expression of triumph and joy, "He is coming!" The father turned his eyes towards her, the woman turned her head, the little sister did not stir. "Who?" demanded her father. "The gentleman." "The philanthropist?" "Yes." "From the church of Saint Jacques?" "Yes." "That old fellow?" "Yes." "And he is coming?" "He is following me." "You are sure?" "I am sure." "There, truly, he is coming?" "He is coming in a fiacre." "In a fiacre? He is a Rothschild." The father rose. "How are you sure? If he is coming in a fiacre, how is it that you arrive before him? You gave him our address at least? Did you tell him that it was the last door at the end of the corridor on the right? If he only does not make a mistake! So you found him at the church? Did he read my letter? What did he say to you?" "Ta, ta, ta," said the girl. "How you do gallop on, my good man! See here, I entered the church, he was in his usual place, I made him a reverence, and I handed him the letter. He read it, and said to me, 'Where do you live, my child?' I said, 'Monsieur, I will show you.' He said to me, 'No, give me your address. My daughter has some purchases to make. I will take a carriage and reach your house at the same time that you do.' I gave him the address. When I mentioned the house, he seemed surprised, and hesitated for an instant. Then he said, 'Never mind, I will come.' When the mass was finished, I watched him leave the church with his daughter, and I saw them enter a carriage. I certainly did tell him the last door in the corridor on the right." "And what makes you think that he will come?" "I have just seen the fiacre turn into the Rue Petit Banquier. That is what made me run so." "How do you know it was the same fiacre?" "Because I took notice of the number, so there." "What was the number?" 440. "Good! You are a clever girl." The girl stared boldly at her father, and showing the shoes which she had on her feet. "A clever girl, possibly, but I tell you I won't put these shoes on again, and that I won't, for the sake of my health in the first place, and for the sake of cleanliness in the next. I don't know anything more irritating than shoes that squelch and go ki, ki, ki the whole time. I prefer to go barefoot." "You are right," said her father in a sweet tone which contrasted with the young girl's rudeness. "But then you will not be allowed to enter churches, for poor people must have shoes to do that. One cannot go barefoot to the good God," he added bitterly. Then, returning to the subject which absorbed him, "So you are sure that he will come?" "He is following on my heels," said she. The man started up. A sort of illumination appeared on his countenance. "Wife!" he exclaimed, "you hear? Here is the philanthropist. Extinguish the fire." The stupefied mother did not stir. The father, with the agility of an acrobat, seized a broken-nosed jug which stood on the chimney, and flung the water on the brands. Then, addressing his eldest daughter, "Here, you, pull the straw off that chair." His daughter did not understand. He seized the chair, and with one kick he rendered it seatless. His leg passed through it. As he withdrew his leg, he asked his daughter, "Is it cold?" "Very cold. It is snowing." The father turned towards the younger girl who sat on the bed near the window, and shouted to her in a thundering voice, "Quick! Get off that bed, you lazy thing! Will you never do anything? Break a pane of glass!" The little girl jumped off the bed with a shiver. "Break a pane!" he repeated. The child stood still in bewilderment. "Do you hear me?" repeated her father. "I tell you to break a pane." The child, with a sort of terrified obedience, rose on tiptoe and struck a pane with her fist. The glass broke and fell with a loud clatter. "Good," said the father. He was grave and abrupt. His glance swept rapidly over all the crannies of the garret. One would have said that he was a general making the final preparation at the moment when the battle is on the point of beginning. The mother, who had not said a word so far, now rose and demanded in a dull, slow, languid voice, whence her words seemed to emerge in a congealed state, "What do you mean to do, my dear?" "Get into bed," replied the man. His intonation admitted of no deliberation. The mother obeyed, and threw herself heavily on one of the pallets. In the meantime, a sob became audible in one corner. "What's that?" cried the father. The younger daughter exhibited her bleeding fist, without quitting the corner in which she was cowering. She had wounded herself while breaking the window. She went off near her mother's pallet and wept silently. It was now the mother's turn to start up and exclaim, "Just see there, what follies you commit! She has cut herself breaking that pane for you." "So much the better," said the man. "I foresaw that." "What? So much the better?" retorted his wife. "Peace," replied the father. "I suppress the liberty of the press." Then, tearing the woman's chemise which he was wearing, he made a strip of cloth with which he hastily swathed the little girl's bleeding wrist. That done, his eye fell with a satisfied expression on his torn chemise. "And the chemise too," said he. "This has a good appearance." An icy breeze whistled through the window and entered the room. The outer mist penetrated thither, and diffused itself like a whitish sheet of wadding vaguely spread by invisible fingers. Through the broken pane the snow could be seen falling. The snow promised by the Candlemas sun of the preceding day had actually come. The father cast a glance about him as though to make sure that he had forgotten nothing. He seized an old shovel and spread ashes over the wet brands in such a manner as to entirely conceal them. Then, drawing himself up and leaning against the chimney-piece, "Now," said he, "we can receive the philanthropist." Chapter 8. The Ray of Light in the Hovel. The big girl approached and laid her hand in her father's. "Feel how cold I am," said she. "Bah!" replied the father, "I am much colder than that." The mother exclaimed impetuously, "You always have something better than anyone else, so you do, even bad things." "Down with you," said the man. The mother, being eyed after a certain fashion, held her tongue. Silence reigned for a moment in the hovel. The elder girl was removing the mud from the bottom of her mantle with a careless air. Her younger sister continued to sob. The mother had taken the latter's head between her hands, and was covering it with kisses, whispering to her the while, "My treasure, I entreat you, it is nothing of consequence. Don't cry. You will anger your father." "No," exclaimed the father, "quite the contrary. Sob, sob, that's right." Then turning to the elder, "There now, he's not coming. What if he were not to come? I shall have extinguished my fire, wrecked my chair, torn my shirt, and broken my pane, all for nothing." "And wounded the child," murmured the mother. "Do you know," went on the father, "that it's beastly cold in this devil's garret? What if that man should not come? Oh, see there, you! He makes us wait. He says to himself, 'Well, they will wait for me. That's what they're there for.' Oh, how I hate them! And with what joy, jubilation, enthusiasm, and satisfaction I could strangle all those rich folks, all those rich folks! These men who pretend to be charitable, who put on airs, who go to mass, who make presents to the priesthood, preachy, preachy, in their skull caps, and who think themselves above us, and who come for the purpose of humiliating us, and to bring us clothes, as they say, old duds that are not worth 4 sous, and bread. That's not what I want, pack of rascals that they are. It's money. Ah, money. Never, because they say that we would go off and drink it up, and that we are drunkards and idlers. And they? What are they then? And what have they been in their time? Thieves. They never could have become rich otherwise. Oh, society ought to be grasped by the four corners of the cloth and tossed into the air, all of it. It would all be smashed very likely, but at least no one would have anything, and there would be that much gained. But what is that blockhead of a benevolent gentleman doing? Will he come? Perhaps the animal has forgotten the address. I bet that old beast—" At that moment there came a light tap at the door. The man rushed to it and opened it, exclaiming amid profound bows and smiles of adoration, "Enter, sir, deign to enter, most respected benefactor, and your charming young lady also." A man of ripe age and a young girl made their appearance on the threshold of the attic. Marius had not quitted his post. His feelings for the moment surpassed the powers of the human tongue. It was she. Whoever has loved knows all the radiant meanings contained in those three letters of that word. She. It was certainly she. Marius could hardly distinguish her through the luminous vapor which had suddenly spread before his eyes. It was that sweet, absent being, that star which had beamed upon him for 6 months. It was those eyes, that brow, that mouth, that lovely vanished face which had created night by its departure. The vision had been eclipsed, now it reappeared. It reappeared in that gloom, in that garret, in that misshapen attic, in all that horror. Marius shuddered in dismay. What! It was she! The palpitations of his heart troubled his sight. He felt that he was on the brink of bursting into tears. What! He beheld her again at last, after having sought her for so long. It seemed to him that he had lost his soul, and that he had just found it again. She was the same as ever, only a little pale. Her delicate face was framed in a bonnet of violet velvet. Her figure was concealed beneath a pelisse of black satin. Beneath her long dress a glimpse could be caught of her tiny foot, shod in a silken boot. She was still accompanied by Monsieur Leblanc. She had taken a few steps into the room, and had deposited a tolerably bulky parcel on the table. The eldest Jondrette girl had retired behind the door, and was staring, with sombre eyes, at that velvet bonnet, that silk mantle, and that charming, happy face. End of Book 8, Chapters 7 and 8.